Any demographics that you would share, and I'll open up this demographics page, like your sex or your ethnicity or your race or any disability, this information is never seen by a projected hiring manager. It is only for the Office of Personnel Management, which I call the mothership for federal government. That's only for them to track statistical information on how are we doing on diversity and inclusion and equal opportunity for people that are looking to the federal government for employment. It's never shared with a hiring manager. So that first. Citizenship, for 99.9% of the jobs at the Environmental Protection Agency, you're going to need to be a U.S. citizen. So you would edit that to say, I am a U.S. citizen, or whatever your citizen status happens to be for your USAJOBS account. Hiring paths, while this information is optional, this is also very important information. In the many iterations of USAJOBS that have gone through the last decade or so of changes, we are currently at the most user-friendly. And what I mean by that is these lovely little icons are what you might want to consider as hats. If you're a US citizen, you have one hat to look for federal employment. If you're a current federal employee, that gives you a second hat to wear when you're looking for federal positions. If you are a veteran, if you are a National Guard or reservist, military spouse, student, or a recent graduate within the last 2 years, or for military within the last 6 years, individuals with disabilities. Consider these or think of these as the hats that you can use to apply for different jobs. And I'll show you how to do that in just a few moments. Native Americans as well, Peace Corps volunteers. If you've done a Peace Corps activity, and then you have your 1-year letter that allows you to apply for federal employment. These types of icons are now featured on the USAJOBS announcements that are quick references and quick visual cues that tell you, hey, if I've got that hat, I can apply for this job. I'm eligible to apply. And if you're eligible, the next level of concern is, am I qualified? Do I have the degree? Do I have the work experience on my resume and things like that? So hiring paths are very important. Let's go back on that page. Further into your profile, you can add things like federal service or prior work experience or any military service. Your education can also be added. Any languages that you are either a novice or a proficient user of, any professional organizations and references. This is a good place to hold that information in the event that you need help learning to build your resume, or you just need one place to have all that one-stop shop information for your job applications. All right, so I'm going to go back over to our USAJOBS account. We were looking at profile, and then documents is a really nice feature in your USAJOBS account. You have and can upload up to 5 resumes in your USAJOBS account. What that means is you can upload or use the resume builder to create or set aside 5 specific resumes for your job applications. Maybe you're really good at data analysis and a program analyst position is one resume that you want to focus those skills on. And then maybe you're a biology major and, oh, got some background noise. Maybe you're a biology major and you want to focus on those types of skills and those activities in a different resume and downplay some of that data analysis experience that you bring to the table. You can have multiple resumes. It doesn't always have to be the same resume for every job. One thing I would highlight, as Andrew was saying, you know, sometimes we get to 10 pages in our resumes, depending on how many jobs we've had, etc. When you're creating your resume, don't repeat your duties and responsibilities. And what I mean by that is, let's say you had an internship and you were responsible for answering the incoming and outgoing mail correspondence, and you were responsible for managing the meeting schedule for staff meetings and routine trainings. Okay. In your next position, you don't want to keep highlighting that you did those jobs, even though you probably are doing those jobs. Maybe you want to add that now you're doing the budget for the office supplies, and you are developing policy for how travel expenses will be set up. So you see you've got a progression of duties from the internship type position to a more office manager type position. You're showing that, hey, I mastered in the internship those two first duties of answering correspondence and managing a schedule. And then you've moved on to managing a budget and developing a policy or a procedure on how a program would be run. So you're showing on your resume that you're not necessarily repeating basic duties, you're moving on and developing your career. That shows a progression. Some tips listed on this page for documents: that you only want Word documents or text-based PDFs. Recruiters may contact you directly about possible jobs, would be some information. And how recruiters would do that would be if you make your resume searchable, as it's noted here on this little blue banner. What that means is, and there's only, let's see, there's like 1% out of the millions of applications and accounts that are part of USAJOBS, there's only about 1% of those resumes in USAJOBS that are searchable. What that means is, if Andrew and I are looking for a specific skill set, and we have 10 keywords that we need to search through resumes for, and you've made your resume searchable, we might pull up your resume through that search. That's a really nice tool. Doesn't mean you're automatically going to get the job. Just means that we can reach out to you and say, hey, we have this job. We see that you have one of those hats that we talked about earlier in the profile for eligibility. You're a U.S. citizen, and you're also a recent graduate, and you also have Peace Corps. And those are 3 categories that we are looking for people to hire. Or you're somebody with a disability. And we see that you've got one of those 10 or a couple of those 10 keywords that we've searched for. Your resume popped up. We send it to the hiring manager. They're interested in interviewing you. So then we can reach out to you and email you and say, hey, this is our position. Are you interested and are you available? And then that could lead to possible job offer. That is one way that making your resume searchable on USAJOBS is of value to you. So it's something to consider. Some of the tips here on this page talk about things that you don't want to include on your resume. Obviously, you don't want to include any classified or sensitive government information. If you have it, you never, I can't say that more, never want to have your social security number on the resume or documents, and you don't want to have a picture of yourself. I know that there are accounts out there like Indeed or LinkedIn or whatnot, and there's a professional photo is all the rage. I get it, but it also opens the door to unconscious bias. There's a lot of diversity and inclusion type of information that can be gleaned just from your resume, just from your name, maybe where you live, maybe the school that you went to, and adding a photo adds to a level of unconscious bias that you really don't want. And like I said, we're an equal employment opportunity employer, so photos are not something you want to have on your resume. Also, you don't want to have any personal information such as your age, your gender, religious affiliation, that could, again, open that door to unconscious bias. As you see here on the additional help, these little links go over to the help page within the USAJOBS platform, and we'll go to the Help Center as part of this demonstration. The others documents, you can have up to 10 additional documents in your USAJOBS accounts. And some of those documents could be those reference letters or a list of references. Rather than have your references in your resume, why take up that space? Have a separate list of references. You could have your appraisal or performance reviews added to your 10 documents. If you're a prior veteran or a prior military, you could have your DD-214, your separation member 4 copy. You can also have, if you're a current federal employee, your most recent SF-50, your most recent notice of personnel action. Transcripts. I want to foot stomp this, especially for my folks that have recently graduated or who are about to graduate. It is so important that you obtain an official copy of your transcript for your own personal records, for your own I Love Me file, for your own this is what I accomplished file. It's your education. You paid for it, or you may still be paying for it if you have loans. Get your own official copy, and that way you've got it. You can upload it into the USAJOBS account. If a federal employer wants an official copy from whatever clearinghouse your university or certifying program used, let that federal agency get to that point when they need to. But for your own personal record, for your own USAJOBS account, do yourself a favor and get your own official copy. Also listed on this page, do not include documents. Of course, those key items from the previous page, don't put your social in your documents. You can retract it or use a black marker and then rescan the document. No photos of yourself, and certainly no personal information. Okay, so that's the documents portion. And what I like to see on this page is this little reminder. This is a new feature in the USAJOBS platform. They're constantly making good updates, and this is one of them. Hey, did you want to upload your document? You said you're a veteran, or you said you're a current federal employee. Do you want to upload that document? That's a nice little coddling tool, if you will. All right, so we're on preferences. Preferences are going to help you in your job search on USAJOBS. So are you willing to travel? Are you willing to relocate? Where do you want to work? I'm going to put Denver. And the system's going to automatically pull up Denver, Pennsylvania, Denver, Ohio, or Denver, Iowa. No, Denver, Colorado. That's where things are great. Appointment type and work schedule. Do I want to, cast the widest net possible and say all types of work? That can be done. Am I only looking for internships? Then I can just mark internships. What type of work schedule are you willing to accept? Most of the jobs within our EPA are all full-time. Part-time would be for our interns, and that will be annotated in the announcement. We don't really have job sharing. We don't really do intermittent work. If you're looking for a job with the Park Service, I know they do intermittent type jobs, but I don't work for the Park Service, but I'm just saying that that's where people highlight jobs for intermittent work would be highlighted for the summertime when traffic picks up for those national parks. So I'm going to save these preferences, and then that's going to help us when we go over to the search tab. So now we're on the main page in the account. We've got applications, saved jobs, and saved searches. I'm going to take us over to the search in the top right corner, and we're going to search quite easily. Pick this up from the last session, thankfully, somebody was very diligent and said, hey, Michelle, you don't have to keep typing out Environmental Protection Agency. You can just type EPA. Lo and behold, the dog learned a new trick. There we go. So when I search for EPA, the filters that I just put on in my account have been applied automatically. I've got veterans, I've got open to the public, and then those offers telework, full-time, all the different schedules, and things like that. That's how these tools are really much more user-friendly than they used to be. Now, if I take off all those filters and I search again for EPA, it should work. I get to a couple of pages, 61 jobs. And then if I want to add in, hey, I'm looking for recent graduate hat, or I'm a person with disabilities, let's see, or I'm just a US citizen, then it's going to open up all of those jobs, which we now have a list of 45 jobs that have one or more of the icons or the hats that we talked about setting up in your profile that are applicable to those types of positions. Now, if I wanted to limit to just Colorado, then I could add in the state of Colorado. Let's see what we've got. And that gets me 4 jobs currently being advertised on the EPA platform or through the EPA platform for those hats and the location of Denver, Colorado. I would like to save this search. This save search feature is really, really useful. When you click on the link above your list of jobs, you can title the search whatever you want to call it. You can ask the system to notify you either daily, weekly, or monthly. I don't know why people put never, but it's an option. And you can save that search. That means that the search with these parameters, Environmental Protection Agency, and these hats over here on the right-hand column, that's a saved search. You're going to get a daily email. So if I go back over to my account, I have one saved search that's over here that started on the 12th of December 2023, and the system will automatically archive it 1 year from today's date, or you can renew it as you get closer. And the system is even programmed to send you a reminder probably about 30 days out. Hey, your search is going to expire. Do you want to renew it? But you can always come back in here. Or if I'm done with it for today's demonstration, I can archive it and use it and do a new one for the next session.
Michelle, a couple of questions that popped in, but I just wanted to emphasize this safe search function. You know, jobs in the federal government on USAJOBS sometimes are posted for 3 days, 4 days, 7 days, 10 days. It just depends. And so if you're not actively looking that day or within that time frame for a position, a job may be posted and then closed pretty quickly. And sometimes they put limits on there that we're only going to accept the first 50 resumes, and then they close the job. So this save search function that Michelle just walked through is absolutely critical if you're very interested in civil service, the federal government, because you'll get an email every morning that says, here are all the jobs that meet the search criteria that Michelle just talked about. It'll pop in your email box every single day. I've been in the federal government for a long time, and I still get daily USAJOB emails, you know, about positions that I might be interested in some point in my future career. So I cannot stress that enough.
Okay, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to search for EPA, and we're going to go into an announcement. So let's take a look at student trainee administration or student, let's try biology and engineering, physical science. As you can see on this announcement, you've got a couple of tabs. You've got summary, who the job is open to, that's eligibility hats, the duties, The requirements. So requirements is where you're going to see that information, Sophie, on is it just a degree? Is it experience? Is it a combination of the two? And it's different for every job. How you'll be evaluated, what the required documents are in the application process, and then how to apply. It is very important to take a look at the whole announcement, and if you don't understand something, you can always reach out to the point of contact that's listed on the how to apply portion of the announcement. That is the person who can address questions about eligibility or do I need to provide this document, etc. You have an overview that goes alongside the right-hand column of the announcement. And as Andrew was talking about, you've got start open dates and close dates for announcements. You might have something that was open at the end of November. This one, probably because of the holidays, is extended for a month, but usually announcements are maximum 7 days. That's something to watch out for, which is why that saved search is a real lifesaver. This is going to tell you the pay grades that you're eligible for. It talks about the different locations. As I mentioned before, remote job, most of them are going to say no, but they are telework eligible, and that's where we get into the hybrid option that really the post-pandemic work world is looking at. Relocation expenses, no. Type of appointment, work schedule, and again, this is a student job, so it's allowing part-time hours to let the academic program coordinate or balance with the work duties and responsibilities, and the other things like occupation series, which is really a more in-depth conversation than we can offer here. But you've got a 4-digit code that identifies the type of work or the type of degree that would be needed. So you would follow through the announcement and looking at the qualifications. You're going to look at conditions of employment. You're going to look at qualifications. So for example, this particular announcement, because it's an internship, you're not required to have an education qualification, but you are required to be enrolled in some sort of academic program. You can always read more in looking at the read more portion of that. How you will be evaluated. This is one place where you can preview questions for the vacancy. Your initial questions will be eligibility questions. What hats do you wear as a job seeker in the federal world? And then the next series of questions will be qualification questions and duties and responsibilities, project management, budget management, or science-based questions if it's a science-based position. I always recommend that if you can, print out those questions or save them on your desktop, something to review and build your conversation in your head, so to speak. So when you're answering questions about qualifications, think about your resume. Is this something that is demonstrated on my resume for answering this question? That's one way that you can be prepared for an interview if you're called for interview. The next tab, when it talks about required documents, walks you through what you would need from your USAJOBS account to apply. And then, of course, how to apply will walk you through the steps. If you are someone who needs reasonable accommodation in your application process or even for an interview, again, you would reach out to the contact listed on the How to Apply agency contact information page. So I'm going to move us back to our demo account. Again, if you wanted to save a job, you could save, like from our saved search. Let me show you real quick. Hopefully the screens will do their blinky really quickly. So let's say you wanted to save a job. So this top job on my little saved search demonstration, I can use that star or save that star, click on it on the index card for that announcement, and then I can come back over to my demo account and I've got one saved job and it tells me it closes on the 22nd, and the system will actually send me a reminder when the announcement is about to be closed, and that's from this notification feature on the saved job page. I say, hey, yes, I would like the email when they're about to close within 3 calendar days, because you never want to get to the midnight hour and you're like trying to finish the job application. I've been there. So that notification feature is a really nice tool. Like I said, I want us to get to this help tab. This help center is a really nice feature that has gone over several different creations, and they've got some basic how-to section at the top, and then you've got frequently asked questions, and you've got working in government, and then towards the lower part of this page, they've outlined information for the different hiring paths, the different hats that we talked about. Students and recent grads are lumped together. Take some time to build your understanding about these different hats. This is a really nice resource, especially when you're first learning about the different pathways. Some of the information in the follow-up email will highlight using this help center as well. You also have direct on the underneath the keywords, frequently asked questions, how to, the working in government and unique hiring paths options on this help center page. Really nice. What's even better, and I used to create a separate alphabetized list for job seekers, but now on USAJOBS, you have this really nice glossary on the help center that you can pop up on the right-hand side of your screen, and it's, thank goodness, alphabetized. But if I were trying to figure out, well, what's competitive service? Oh, it's one of 3 services in the federal government. That makes sense, and it gives you a little bit of an understanding of what that term is. What's a DD-214? Well, if you're not military, it's not necessarily applicable to you, but this explains what a DD-214 is. Detail, duty station. It walks through some of those basic terms that you'll see in job announcements that might make you scratch your head and want to hit your head up against the wall, maybe, because you're like, what the heck is that? It's a totally different language. Federal system has its own language as well as its own rules and regulations, but this is a really nice feature through the help center that you can access in that top right-hand corner. I cannot stress how nice it is to have a glossary. It didn't exist, I promise you, 5 years ago. So, any questions about the profile page? Oh, I see Jacob's got a question about, can a recent graduate apply for internship positions, or must you be a current student? It's a very good question. So under the Pathways program, there are a couple of different hats. There are a couple of different types of Pathways programs, I should say. So there's Pathways Indefinite, where you're a current student. There's Pathways Recent Graduate. There's a fellowship program. It depends on how that announcement is being posted. You could be a recent graduate who is pursuing graduate school and taking a year off between, hey, I graduated in May 2023, and then in fall of 2024, I'm going to start a doctorate program. So it depends on everybody's academic program and what those pursuits might be. Sorry, I can't be more specific.
Michelle, can I add on to that? Also,
Yeah.
Keep in mind that if you do apply for some of those positions, it does take a while to go through the hiring process. It can take a couple of months. So that needs to be part of the equation as well. When did you graduate? Did you graduate in late summer and you're going to grad school in January? So I mean, by the time you applied and went through the system, you might be eligible. So if you have questions, again, reach out to Michelle or myself about internships, because it can be a little confusing.
Good question, though. I see there's a question regarding can my reference be a relative or, say, a medical professional or a teacher if my network is limited? Yes. if it's mom or dad or an aunt or an uncle, I would ask that they might want to focus on maybe a project that you help them with. You know, and if your reference pool is limited, let's use our imagination a little bit here. So say you helped your aunt and uncle with a big cleaning out the garage project last summer, and it took 6 weeks to do it, and the end result was a remodeled garage. Okay, that's great. They could provide you a reference letter to say, hey, she or he helped us with this project, helped us with managing those resources, and helped us start from start to finish at the 6-week program, rather than highlight that this is a relative. So that's where I would use maybe a relative, just to focus on a project that you help them with. And of course, if you've helped a medical professional or a teacher, how was that association, and how is their reference letter going to help you? Is there a project that you worked on with them, or is there something that they can speak to your character about in their reference letter? Yes, you can use those as references. What qualities stand out amongst college applicants? Andrew, do you want to hit that one up?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. And so for everybody's knowledge, I was a hiring manager for over 30 years. So I've hired quite a few people. So for college students, the resume, a well-written resume is incredibly important. I cannot stress that enough. And we'll hit a little bit more as Michelle's going through the documents portions of this. But again, keep in mind, federal resumes are different than your CVs, your civilian resumes. Normally, a civilian resume is about a page. That's what the Career Center directors in the corporate America ask you to keep it to. Federal resumes are different. We look at 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. Sometimes a mid-level professional could have upwards of 10 pages on a resume. I recommend to everyone just go on Google and just type in how to write a federal resume. And there's a plethora of different resources available that will show you different examples of what a federal resume looks like. But Addison, to me, that's the most important part. That's what stands out. You have, again, in a more robust resume, the ability to put more information, put information about your extracurricular activities in college. Were you part of the environmental science club? Where did you have different level, leadership positions? What are some of the conservation and environmental activities? What was your employment history? Of course, and again, the federal resume gives you that opportunity to put that information in there, because as hiring managers, we can get anywhere from 5 resumes to 50 resumes. So the more information and the more robust you can make it, that helps jump out to us as hiring managers. It helps. It truly does. And then, if you make it through the resume review, the interview. And I'm sure everyone's gone through interview classes, but interview, practice, practice, practice. Those are the 2 things I would say that I've seen students who I knew were highly qualified. They didn't have a good resume, or they didn't practice in their interviews.
Thank you, Andrew. So qualities that stand out, a wide range. They could be based on your background and experience. They could also be based on, as Andrew was describing, extracurricular duties and responsibilities, and the impact that those extracurricular activities had on maybe your community or even yourself. One thing I always recommend is to do a cover letter. And I know there are a lot of websites and tools out there and courses that talk about, cover letters are old hat, you don't need to do them. I kind of shake my head and go, but that's your voice. That's a 1-page, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs to say, this is why I think I'm a good fit for your job. Give me a call. I look forward to hearing from you. That's your voice beyond your resume. So why would you cut your voice off? It just doesn't make sense to me. So I advocate for those cover letters. In our follow-up email, we will provide an example of a functional resume versus a chronological resume. And if you're someone with limited work experience or just coming out of school, maybe a functional resume would be more appropriate than a chronological resume. And the materials that we're going to share go through the differences between those two resources. Okay, so let's see, we've got another question here. I am a GS11 with 6 months. Can I apply for a GS12 level position? Generally speaking, you're going to need at least 12 months at a GS11 grade level to be time and grade minimally qualified for that GS12 position. So it's a little early to apply for those positions, and your application might get rejected or not referred, what we call not referred, because it's a little early for that.
There's a couple of questions popped in. Jacob asked about does AI review resumes? And I said no, a professional HR individual reviews all resumes. So again, a well-written resume, looking at the vacancy announcement that's posted on USAJOBS and the qualifications, that's very important as that HR specialist is reviewing and scoring the resume.
It's a good question, and it's one that's near and dear to my heart. It's also highlighted in the body of our follow-up email that it's part of the Mythbusters from our help center here in the USAJOBS account. It's two parts, right? There might be a keyword search, but in order to verify your eligibility and your qualifications, it's a person that has to review that information. So, I've got job security and so does Andrew.
Also, before we move on, Michelle, we did have one question from Sophie. Do you have any recommendations specific to graduate students or folks with graduate degrees for the application process?
So the category, see, how do I unselect these?
As Michelle's clicking on that, what I'd recommend, Sophie, is you're going through looking at the job announcement in the education portion. It does specifically talk about, the degrees that are required or recommended for that position. And so if you have a graduate degree, make sure that your transcripts are on there. It's in your resume. So it's explicit that I do have a graduate degree or I have a PhD.
Right. And to follow on from Andrew's insights, Sophie, there's going to be a section in an announcement that talks about the qualifications for each job, and they're all going to be a little different. There are positions that are what we call positive education, which means that occupation requires a degree. No kidding, you got to have a degree. Do not pass go, do not collect 200. There are occupations like human resources specialist. I don't have to have a degree in business administration or human resources to be an HR professional. There's no positive education requirement. It's nice to have it, but it's not required. So one of the other things that I would point out to you, Sophie, is recent graduates would be the hat that I would add to my profile, and maybe students, just to see what's out there. If you were selected for a position that's just students, you would then need to provide any academic documentation to show that you're a current student. And it could be a certificate program that you've enrolled in, or it could be a full-time degree. But recent graduates might be a hat that would be an eligibility category for you to consider.
We do have a question from Alfred. He is a mechanical engineer for 20 years. So he's been working, I guess, with medical schools, no license, and is a recent master's in public health. Any chance or hope for you? Yes. So Alfred, if you have a degree in engineering, and again, as Michelle said, you go through the different positions. If there's something that interests you, please apply for it, whether it's with EPA or another federal agency. We have a lot of mechanical engineers as part of our agency. One of my colleagues, Stephen, mechanical engineer, he is an inspector, and he goes out to different facilities and he does inspections. And the reason his skill set is so important is he walks into a refinery or some sort of manufacturing plant. As a mechanical engineer, he has an understanding of the systems that are in place that supports the inspection part of it. But again, when it comes to engineering, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, industrial engineering, we run the gamut when it comes to different engineering opportunities. So if there's something that you're interested in, Michelle has explained the profile and how to set up your profile. Start applying for positions. There's always opportunities out there.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, education is one of those areas where it doesn't matter the age or when you completed your degree. So you can put on one of these hats. If you're a current student enrolled in a certificate or an academic program, or you're a recent graduate, you can put on one of those hats. Don't let the age bother you. There are plenty of non-traditional students that are out there. I was one when I was doing my grad school. Don't set the age filter aside, please. And then take a look at the different types of positions that are out there. When you get the follow-up email, go through some of that material. And if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to Andrew and myself. All right.
Michelle, we do have a couple of questions that have popped in as well. We want to take a break. So we have one from Sophie asking about a lot of the positions in the general area that she's interested in have fixed or temporary term, i.e. 2 years. And she's asking about, could that be related to IRA funding? And could you speak to the nature of the temporary positions?
Absolutely.
Is there any trend, etc.? So.
Yes, thank you for calling attention to that question, and thank you for asking it, Sophie. Some of those temporary positions are because of the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act law. So they are time limited. One of the things that you want to look out for when you see an advertisement on USAJOBS for 1 year or 2 year time frame, you want to see or ask, if it's not listed, does the position have potential to be made permanent without further competition? I'm going to say that again. Position may be made permanent without further competition. You're looking for that statement, and I should probably type it in the chat, because that means that after if the funding is available and you've worked the 2 years in that position, they could make it permanent if the funding is still available, and you don't have to reapply on USAJOBS to be considered for the position if you're in a temporary or term position like that. Temporary positions can go up to a maximum of 5 years. Term positions include benefits. Temporary appointments do not always include benefits, but a term appointment includes benefits. So you want to pay attention to the difference when you're looking at those time-limited appointments. And I'll type in that key phrase. I'm not a talker and a typer, so give me a second. Key phrase for time.
And as Michelle's typing, yes, so if the position is specific for bill or IRA funding, then that position is there until that funding is gone. Or as Michelle said, if there's additional funding, ask the question that she's going to pose into there. So those are tricky. So again, opm.gov has a lot of information on term, temporary, permanent, etc. So please do the research and understand as you're applying for the job what the parameters are for it. I see Garrett has a question as well. So Garrett, we will get to your question in a minute. And for Alfred, if you do go on to EPA.gov, if you go to USA Jobs and type in EPA, you will see in Denver, we do have a position available. It's environmental engineer, physical scientist, life scientist, mid profession. But when you click on it and you scroll down into the educational requirements, it doesn't say you have to have an environmental engineering degree. It says a professional engineering degree from an accredited college. So it's really important to look down into the actual vacancy announcements and not just the titles themselves. Because again, the title it may be a generic title, whereas the qualifications could be, in this case, just a general engineer.
Thank you. I put that key language in the chat. Where are we at with questions, Andrew?
All right, we have another one from Garrett. It says, can you explain the difference between delegated examining, DE, and direct hire authority, DH, as well as how these hiring distinctions influence candidates' rankings and or selections in EPA positions?
It's a good question. So, delegated examining is open to all U.S. citizens. And I would emphasize that delegated examining, DE, E stands for everyone who's a U.S. citizen. So try to make that a little easier. Direct hire authority, I'm going to see if we can use the USAJOBS tool for this. There's a page that I send in the follow-up email that talks about direct hire a little bit. So I typed in the keywords direct hire, and we have multiple agencies with direct hire authority positions that are open. Let's not focus on the agency, but let's focus on the announcement. This one is only open for a week. Let's focus. Here we go. This is what I want to show you. So supervisory equipment specialist, direct hire authority. More often than not, agencies are advertising for collecting applicants at 6 months, 8 months, 12 months at a time. So they're building an applicant pool. So if there is a vacancy in that 12-month period, they can quickly provide the hiring manager a list of people who have applied. You might have applied for the position, like the one that's highlighted here, at the beginning of December, but they're now reaching out to you the following summer, and you may no longer be available. That's kind of the problem with these applicant pools, but it's still worth applying and putting your resume in. It's just there may not be an actual vacancy available, okay? So when you're seeing direct hire authority on USAJOBS, what you want to pay attention to is when did it open and when did it close, and maybe put that in a special section for your job application records. Your application would stay on file for 1 year. They may call you, they may not call you. It depends on whether or not there's a vacancy. Now, more specifically, if I go over to my magic Google and I go OPM, oh, she's typing and talking at the same time, government-wide direct hire. When we look at direct hire authority, under OPM, again, the mothership for all federal agencies, we've got 3 pages on this, and it's included in your follow-up information. Government-wide authority means that these occupations, these are in the medical field with these occupation series, information technology, and getting down to those STEM positions, these are occupations that are in critical need for federal positions. Environmental Protection Agency, a lot of our positions are science-based, or IT is needed, data science, physical science, biology, any type of engineering really. Those are types of occupations that we have direct hire authority. And what that means is you could reach out to those different agencies that have those types of jobs and say, hey, I think I'm eligible for this occupation series that's part of the government-wide direct hire authority. If you have any vacancies, that's the part you don't know. If you have any vacancies and you think that my resume and credentials are a good fit, please feel free to reach out to me. That's kind of a cold call from a job seeker. You could reach out and be direct hired. You wouldn't necessarily have to apply to a USAJOBS announcement because there's such a dire need for filling those types of occupations. Does that help answer the question? I'm not sure who answered that, who asked that. Does that help, Garrett?
And also, Michelle mentioned earlier your searchable resumes. A lot of the HR practitioners, they do use that resume searching database to find direct hire candidates, whether it's a veteran, person with disability, Peace Corps. We run a lot of those queries to see, do people have the skill sets that we can do a direct hire for critical positions? And then we reach out to them. We've been hiring quite a few, both veterans and persons with disabilities over the past couple months through our searches on USAJOBS. So keep that in mind as well. Yeah. Back to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Andrew. I see we're at 4:15, 4:17. Sorry to take you guys over. We do care about the job seeking process and the navigating the fun, quotation marks, fun, for applying for a federal position. So I'm sorry to go over on our time. Again, if you haven't already done so, please put your email address in the chat so we can be sure to send you the follow-up information. And you can always reach out to Andrew or myself with more specific questions if you weren't able to get your question answered today. We're very grateful for your interest in the Environmental Protection Agency and being part of, dare I say, the winning team that saves the planet.